Spoiler warning. This video contains spoilers to Season 7, Episode 1, as well as issue 100 of the Walking Dead graphic novel series. So, after a long time waiting, in what was probably the worst cliffhanger ever, we were finally given the answer to who was at the receiving end of Lucille, a barbed wire baseball bat held by one of the comic series' most ruthless villains, Negan. A cliffhanger which, in my opinion, should have ended seconds short of where it did. We didn't need to know that the blow was coming, and the speculation of who and if would have still been up in the air for fans who had not read the comics. For fans that had, the real question was whether or not it was going to be faithful to the comics or diverge. But after a 6-month break, I stopped caring, to be honest. It was anticlimactic, and I found it even more ridiculous to see what lengths the showrunners were going to protect the secret. Every month following, I'd see in my Facebook feed another clickbait article theorizing why they thought each person in the eeny meeny circle was the one killed by Negan. After 14 minutes of beating around the bush, we got a glimpse of Lucille's power when Abraham was killed. The death wasn't that brutal, and for a period, I was disappointed. All of this wait. For this? I watched angrily as the show progressed. We got to the taking it like a champ line, and it just wasn't working for me in this context. And if you read the original comic that the scene was based on, it worked more for Glenn's response. But I digress. After the first-person viewpoint in the season finale, I thought that was the goriest the show would be allowed to go. But lo and behold, Glenn gets back up, and his eyes popped out of his socket, and Negan proceeds to bash his brains in, and I'm left pretty impressed. I'm sorry that my choice of words wasn't devastating, but the showrunners could have fixed that by not letting us know that a character was killed. So our question wasn't simply who, but leave some of us with a twinge of optimism, so that the hopeless narrative of this episode was driven home. So, after the brutal death was aired, the president of the Parents Television Council, Tim Winters, voiced his concerns with the show's content, condemning the episode, saying, "Last night's season premiere of The Walking Dead was one of the most graphically violent shows we've ever seen on television, comparable to most violent programs found on premium cable networks."
Well, I take it he's never seen anything off of, like, let's say Grey's Anatomy, or even like that one really crazy rape scene on Private Practice, or hell, anything that Walking Dead has done before now. Is this really the goriest it's ever got? Really? Just think about that for a minute. Because we didn't see a lot. We saw some blood, okay. We saw the eye popping out, which was cool. But they have action figures of entrails, like, coming out of zombies. Like, really? This is what they're gonna bitch about?
Winters continues. It's not enough to change the channel, as some people like to advocate, because cable subscribers, whether they want AMC or watch its programming, are still forced to subsidize violent content. This brutally explicit show is a powerful demonstration of why families have greater control over the TV networks they purchase from their cable and satellite providers. As a response to Winter's statement, I would state that it bothers me that you would even consider The Walking Dead a family show. While it's up for the parents to decide what content they deem appropriate for their children, it's not like this show is rated TV-14 or anything. The MA rating says everything. To be honest, television in recent years has a bit more edge than even what we see in the multiplex. As for the violence shown in the scene, I thought it was effective and brutal, but not on a whole other level that was unwarranted. There is a way I can see this episode being upsetting. One that I was unaware of until a couple days ago. How the murder of Glenn is eerily similar to that of Vincent Chin. Vincent Chin was a Chinese American who was bludgeoned with a baseball bat until his head cracked. He died in the hospital 4 days later. This was 1982 Detroit, so a considerable amount of time has passed for this to just be a really bizarre, unintended coincidence. But the parallels between Vincent and Glenn's death are close enough that an upset would be understanding. The reason for the crime was racially motivated. A couple white workers who were laid off after the increase of Japanese auto companies' market share in the US. Of course, their racism blinded them from not being able to tell that Vincent was not Japanese. This horrific story is in no way used to undermine the horrific crimes done to African Americans, but to illustrate that hate crimes happen to people of all ethnic backgrounds. And while I believe that the showrunners and even Robert Kirkman were probably not aware of his death, the similarities would actually warrant a reasonable upset. What do you think? Did Glenn's death have an impact on you? Do you think showing the amount of carnage in the first episode was warranted? Let me know in the comments below. Thanks for watching.